morning. So we're up to Siman Tov Hey Seif Zayin. Mishef Liga B'Sfinasa Bayom. So someone has set sail. Mahaleches Kula. He is allowed to walk in the entire boat. Hayil V'Shavas Ba'avir Mechitzos. Because when Shabbos came in, his shvisa is in Moka Mechitza, the Avir of the Mechitza. So let's just do Rashi, the Mishnah Berurah there. Mishef Liga. It's quite a specific ukimta. A guy came on Erev Shabbos, close to Shkia, Lenomel, to the port, where it was closer than 10 tefachim to the ground. And his intention was to get out of the boat and to go into the city. And therefore he's been koine shvisa on dry land. And the wind came and blew his ship, his boat, out into beyond the Techum, to another place which is actually also less than 10 tefachim min hakarka. And therefore, according to what we said previously in Tov Daled, he's not allowed to leave the boat. Nevertheless, in the Sfina itself, he's allowed to walk the entire area of the boat. Since the boat is mukefes mechitzas, it's got a din of arba amas. So in that unusual situation, he's allowed to walk the entire area of the boat. Even when the boat is standing still, he can traverse the whole thing. Haloshen Megumgum, says Mishnah Berurah Chav Ches. Haloshen Megumgum lav dafka hu telefi hamavur le'el b'sivov imifliga sfinasa shalim edaitei. Because what we said previously was that if his boat went set sail without his knowledge, and the boat brought him to an ear which is Mukav Mechitzas Shalei Shabbos, by where he wasn't Shavas there, or a non-Jewish person placed him in a different boat, Nami Mahaliches Kula. Even in that situation, he could go across the whole boat. He could walk around the entire boat. Because his yitzia was ba'inus. The main point over here is since he is within the airspace of these mechitzas of the boat, as opposed to if the mechitzas have been broken, or if there's a big opening, a big gap, as we're going to say in a second. Okay, so back to the Mechaba, top line. V'im nifchasu dafones sfinas b'Shabbos. This is what the Mishnah was just talking about. But if the sides of the boat have been breached, imhi mahaleches, if the boat is going mahaleches kula, then the guy can walk across the whole boat. V'im medas, but if the ship is standing still, eina mahalech bo ela arba amas. So let's just see, Mishnah Berurah, what's the difference? V'im nifchasu. And you haven't got sides which are of height 10 tefachim to bottle shem mechitzas alidezeh, that the mechitzas have no longer got a status of mechitzas. So too, if you've got a breach of more than 10 amas barach, in width-wise, or there are more openings than there are firm mechitzas. In all of these situations, the shame Rishus HaYochid is gone. When the mechitzas have gone, or there's a paras merubal oimed, or there's a big gap, a piritz of more than 10 amas. So in that situation, then we make a distinction between mahaleches and medes. If it's mahaleches, says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Lamed, the mahaleches lo shaykh lamed yetzer arba amas shalei b'halichasei. Because with arba, when the boat is moving, it's not shaykh to say that he's moving out of his daled amas. To b'chol shah oimed ba'arba amas acherim, because every moment he's moving in a different arba amas, because the ship's moving. To sfina notal to tom me arba amos of la arba amas acherim. You're just constantly changing your arba amas. So it's not shaykh to say he's got to stay within his daled amas. It's constantly moving. But if the boat is stationary, oimedes chus Techum mokum shu nomach l'matzim asar tefachim, in a place where it's lower than 10 tefachim, the l'manim asar, because if the boat was higher than 10 tefachim, lo naktinon the ein by isa tchumin Halo Naktinon, we've already established that there is no Techum more than 10 Tfachim height. And he can walk whatever he wants. Yes, there's discussion where exactly you measure it. Generally speaking, you measure it from the bottom of the boat, i.e., from the water level till the deck. So, imagine a little rowing boat, so you're not going to have that. But if you've got like a larger boat, if you're on a cruise or something like that, for sure it's going to be higher than 10 tefachim, and therefore you haven't got a problem with Techum. Okay, in most situations. Okay, Lamed weiter in the Ramah. We're Sif Zayin, Tof Hey Sif Zayin in the Ramah. Ve'im be'emtza'o yesh la mechitas asara, or be'roishe ein lei, as lina basa emtzai. So, Eli, your safe has come to the rescue again. Couldn't quite understand, I couldn't quite picture this morning when I was looking at it. So, but we're talking about this situation. You've got he's picturing a rowing boat, right? And the middle is depth 10 tefachim, where the mechitas are higher, but the ends not. And how can you have that? I guess the boat sort of slants up at the ends like that. So the mechitas in the middle are 10 tefachim, but by the ends they're not. So that's what he's describing here. Ve'im be'emtso yesh mechitas asara of a roishe ein lei as linon basa emtso. You go after the middle bit. Va'afilu ein lei klal rak yesh bo lachkik asara dominin chekim lahashlim. So we'll see. He's got a second picture over here of that. So let's just see the Mishnah Berurah. He explains it. Of a roishe kagain she amuk be'emtso asa. So the middle part is deeper. Of a roishe he mushupas ve'leches klapi malo kaderech sfinas katanas. So like in the picture there, in the rowing boat. So the ends of the boat, they sort of go up a little bit. So you may have a situation where the mechitzas are not 10 tefachim high. Nevertheless, the whole boat has got a din of Rish Yachid. Because you apply something called Chayre Rish Yachid to Bishus HaYachid too. They're like the little holes or openings or depths, a little of Rish Yachid, and they also have the status of Rish Yachid, even though they haven't got the proper dimensions of Rish Yachid. And therefore, the Chayre Rish Yachid, these ends of the boats have got a din of Chayre Rish Yachid, and therefore the whole thing is considered like one big Rish Yachid. So even if you can even have a situation where the height of the mechitzas is not 10 tefachim high in the middle as well. However, we apply chakika, lachkik, dahainu ove hanasarim. We say that the depth, the thickness of the boards, shebekarka isa, i.e. in the bottom of the boat, you've got the actual planks, the making up the base of the boat. So you could actually include the bottom of the boat to include your 10 tefachim. Even though we normally say ein chaykin lahashlim, shani hachadu bichlal madomrinon b'simen shin ayin beis sivov gidud is included in that case of gidud chamisha hainu tel gvar chamisha mechitza chamisha b'staf in shiasor tefachim. So in short, you've got a boat like this where you've got 10 mechitzas of 10 tefachim height in the middle and not at the top. That's got a din of one big Rish Yachid, and therefore that's called Chorish Sarabim, and therefore you can carry in the whole boat. And here you can have a situation where the mechitzas are less than 10 tefachim, but if you include the base, the bottom of the boat, then we say chaykikin, and therefore it's got a height of 10 mechitzas, of 10 tefachim, and therefore you'd be okay. All right, good. That's the end of Zayin. Yiches. Yotza Ladas. So a guy was a naughty boy. He went beyond his Techum Ladas. Vecheziru evdi kechavim. And then non-Jewish people brought him back. Ein lo ela arba amas. He only now has 4 amas because he was Yotza Ladas. Umiu imechziru leiroi. Hamukav mechitzas ledira. If, however, they bring him back to his city, which is Mukaf mechitzas ledira, then kula karba amas. The whole city for him has got a din of arba amas. Vafilu Yotza Ladas v'chazal Ladas. Even if he went out with knowingly and came back knowingly. Va'anel din stamaroy siman tof aleph. Okay, Mishnah Berurah. V'echziru l'tchumei. He was schlepped back to his tchum. Ela arba amas. Then he only has dalad amas. To bo'inin shia yitzia v'chazor bo'inus. V'chanal b'sifhei. Like we said before, that we only give him kulas and heterim if he went out and he was returned bo'inus.
The yitzia was not bo'inus. It was b'das.
Yeah, so that's why he only has dalad amas. Yeah, exactly. So he went out b'das. And then hechziru v'kechavim still ein ela arba amas. But if he would have gone out ba'inus and come back ba'inus, then he would be able to walk the whole city. Right? Le'iroi she'shavas b'am b'oidyon, where he was when Shabbos came in. Avalim halichu le'ir acheres, but if they schlepp him to another city, ein lo ela arba amas, then he only has arba amas. Kimin sheyotzim et chumoi ledas, because like we said, he was naughty. He went out ledas, and therefore, if they've taken him to another city there, then Hitaka will only have the daladamas. Kamesha kosa b'sivov. But if the city happens to be mukefes mechitzas, i.e., it's it's all surrounded by mechitzas which are mukaf ledira, I'm be'alocha mashe kasavnu b'zeh ledira v'uadin v'uaser mesukonim b'tzuras haPesach, and lav dafka where there's actually a mechitza around the whole city. But even if it's you've got lots of tzuras haPesachs and things like that, kulaka arba amas. Then, in that situation, he's got a din of a daladamas, and he can walk the whole city. Because he was there before Shabbos came in. But he can't leave the city even by one amma. Because again, he was a naughty boy, and he left the das. Therefore, he has lost his tchum, and therefore he's got to stick to daladamas. It so happens if it's mukaf machitas ladira, then he can walk the whole city, and that is his daladamas. Okay, test. I'm finishing off this simon. Peiros shehutziu chuz letchum. Interesting case. What if they didn't take you out, but they took your fruit out? Vehechzirim, and then they brought them back. Afilu b'mezid, even if it was done intentionally, lo yifsidu mekoimam. They haven't lost their tchum. Shekol ha'ir lohem ka'arba amas, that therefore the whole city for these fruit has got a status of arba amas. V'chutzula alpaim amma, and beyond the city he can go 2,000 amas. The fruit can go 2,000 amas like originally. Imhu yontov. V'imhu Shabbos, but if it's Shabbos where you can't carry, then mutarin b'achilim k'imon. If you're in, back in where you are and there's no problems of eruv, you can eat them. V'afilu lo'isi Yisrael. Even for the Jew who for whom they were brought back b'mezid, he's allowed to eat them. My time. What is the reason? Anusim him. The fruit themselves anusim. They haven't got bechira. Therefore, we just look at them. We treat them as anusim. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah Membeis. Afil b'mezid. Rotzelema after legabe Adam kaimen on el. Even though with a human being, we said previously, dim hayetzia hoya b'mezid, that if his leaving was b'mezid, hifsid mekoimai, he has lost his place. Ve'ena ela arba amas, and he's lost his tchum, and he can only go dal damas. Peirus lo hifsidu mekoimam. Peirus do not lose that tchum. Shehoya lahem ben hashmashos, that they had a ben hashmashos. She'anusim hem b'yitziyosim b'chazirosim l'chut lekami, because they're considered anusim always. No one asks them what they want to do, and therefore they're considered anusim, and therefore they never lose their tchum. If you look at 29, just by the way, what if the bailim came with them? Right? Does that change things? So he says not. V'afim yotzu ha'bailim imahem, even if the bailim came with the fruit, kosav ha'ritva b'shem Rabbi, shelo hifsidu ha'peres es mekoiman. There's still the fruit don't lose their tchum. V'af ha'pisha ha'bailim hifsidu es tchum, even though the owners do, nevertheless, ein ha'peres nigrorim acher ha'bailim. In this situation, we don't drag, we'll give the same status of the tchum as the bailim. Okay, back to the Mishnah Berurah, Mem Gimel, Imu Yontov. That's talking about a situation of Yontov, Shemutal alichem b'chol ha'tchum, where you can actually carry them throughout the tchum. Of b'Shabbos halei also lavir in arba amas, you can't carry them for amas. Afilu b'toich ha'tchum. Imloi shahir im oreves, unless there was an erev in town. She'oz mutal l'taltzim b'chol eir, when of course then you would be able to. V'imhu Shabbos rotzulema t'gam b'Shabbos ikha nafkamina al kol ponim in achila. There is still a nafkamina that you can eat them b'mkoimon rotzolema b'makom shechzirim b'toich ha'tchum ba'arba amosehen, in the place where you brought them back. That for amos you can eat them there. V'afilu, even if they were brought back la'osi Yisrael to that person shechzirim l'sorcha b'mezid, where it was brought back b'mezid. V'afagav da'haba mechutz l'tchum osa l'misha ba b'shvilei. Normally say that something was brought chutz l'tchum for that person, it's osa for him. Here, it's a bit different, because you're bringing them back to a place where they were, that was their shvisa at ben hashmoshes, as opposed to a regular tchum. The normal situation is they were, before Shabbos, they were in a different place, outside of the tchum. And what is the rationale underpinning all of this? Because anusim hem, these fruits are considered onus. Even though a person may have taken them out b'mezid, the fruit themselves are on us in their going out, or v'chazarosan, and they're coming back. So therefore it has the same rule as if it was a person who took out the fruit, where they took him out ba'onis and they returned him le'el b'sifhei, that we spoke about in sifhei. And therefore these fruits have got the same status as that person, therefore they're considered oinus, and therefore you can eat them in the place, and they don't lose their tchum. Okay, back to the mechaber, let's just finish off. V'chol zman shelo husuru, and all the whole time where the fruits have not been returned, v'hem chustim koimon, so you've got the fruit which is now outside the tchum. Im hotzien b'shoigeg, if they went out b'shoigeg, mutarim la'achlam v'asol taltalam, chus la'arbamas. You can eat them, but you can't move them more than daladamas. V'im hotziem b'mezid, and if, however, they were taken out b'mezid, then asol la'achlam, you can't eat them. Even if somebody didn't himself take them out, nevertheless they're like muksa, you just can't eat them. And there are those who are matir for the person who wasn't moitzi them, he can eat them, but the person who took them out, then he cannot. Okay, says Mishnah Memches, mutarim la'achlam sham bein la'anoshim acherim shenimtzam sham, whether it's people there who want to eat it, b'makam aperes, or bein la'moitzi atzmai, or the guy himself. Also, the Talsim chus la'arbamas chumuvu le'el sif hey gabi adam da'afilu yotz shlem das. Even if a guy goes out shlem das, ein lo ela arbamas. Also la'achlam, he can't eat them. So this is going on. Nun. Yeah, this is the last bit. V'im hotziyum b'mezid, then also la'achlam. Says the Mishnah Berurah, aval l'taltalam muta ba'arbamas. You can move them within arbamas. This is talking about in a field. But again, if you bring them to a city which is mukav mechitas, afal gav of the surah, even though you're naughty, you shouldn't have done it. Nevertheless, you can carry it in the whole city. Whether they were schlepped out b'mezid or b'shegeg. So we said when it was done b'mezid, even the person who didn't bring them out can't eat them. Says the Mishnah Berurah, "Va'afal gav the peiros shehevi akum mechutz l'tchum eina oser rak l'mishahuvu b'shvilei." Even normally, it's only oser for the person for whom it's brought. Hacha kiven de'isavad Yisrael de Yisrael chomer tzvei. Here, there was an issa through the Yisrael himself, and therefore we're more strict. L'misha lo'etziam, and this is going on the last bit. V'yesh matirin l'misha lo'etziam. There are those who are matir for whom they were not brought. Only for the person they brought is a problem. If they were for the person then that would be okay. V'dafkim lo tziyah b'shvilei. The ilav hochi gam l'de'ezu osa, or the dinner kaim along kadeh rishon. We pass like the first opinion, which is more strict. Even the person for whom they were shelo tziyah b'shvilei, they weren't taken out for him. Gam kein osa lechel, even he cannot eat it. Tehi das reiv haposkim, because that is the majority opinion. Okay, Beseda.